House of the Dragon Episode 2 has a dragon showdown, 2 awkward marriage proposals, and the reveal of Kragas Crabfeeder. So what's going on, and what does it mean? This video has no spoilers beyond Hot D Episode 2. It starts with a new opening sequence for the series. It shows a model city, like the one Viserys makes, but with a stream of blood running through it. This represents the bloodline of House Targaryen. It's a family tree, showing the last 100 years of Targaryen kings. It starts with this image of Valyria, the old empire of the Dragon Lords. Valyria was destroyed in the mysterious Doom, but the Targaryens survived because they had already left Valyria and come to Dragonstone in Westeros. This next image is of Aegon's conquest, when Aegon Targaryen and his sisters and their dragons took over Westeros. Here, the bloodline splits in two, because Aegon had one son with his sister wife Rhaenys, and one son with his other sister wife Visenya. The Rhaenys symbol shows a dragon skull with a bolt through the eye, because Rhaenys and her dragon were shot down with a scorpion bolt in Dawn. Rhaenys' bloodline continues onto her son King Aenys. Aegon's other son, Maegor, also became king, but he never had children, and so isn't included in this bloodline. After Maegor, Aenys' son Jaehaerys became king, and he married his sister Alicent. Here, the bloodline splits into 9 streams, because Jaehaerys and Alicent had 9 children who survived to adulthood. Next are Jaehaerys' kids Baelon and Alyssa. Baelon has a hand symbol, because Baelon was Hand of the King. Baelon and Alyssa's son was King Viserys. Viserys married Aemma Arryn, and she's got the Arryn sigil. After Aemma is a long stream of blood, which evokes Aemma's stillbirths and miscarriages and her death. But then we see her daughter Rhaenyra, with the symbol of the Valyrian steel necklace that Daemon gave her last episode. And there's an image of the ceremony where Rhaenyra was named heir to the throne. Meanwhile, in the background, we see the bloodline of the Velaryons, shown with blue symbols. And we see the bloodline of Otto Hightower, with his Hand of the King symbol, and his daughter Alicent, with the Hightower sigil. So this new intro is a visual summary of the Targaryen family, alongside the Velaryons and Hightowers. Maybe the intro will change throughout the season as the family changes, because this season occasionally jumps forward in time several years. The blood imagery reminds us that the history of the royal family is written in the blood of birth and the blood of battle, and in a lot of red wine. The bloodline is running downhill, which suggests the Targaryens are in decline, falling from their peak at Valyria down towards fiery disaster. The episode starts about 6 months after the previous episode. We see that Kragas Crabfeeder has attacked another Westerosi ship. Crabfeeder is the leader of the Triarchy, an alliance of eastern cities who have taken over the Stepstones Islands. Kragas is called Crabfeeder because he nails his enemies to the beach so they get eaten alive by crabs. According to a behind-the-scenes video, Crabfeeder has grayscale. Grayscale is a disease that slowly turns the body into stone. We saw stone men infected with grayscale in Game of Thrones. Jorah Mormont catches grayscale. Grayscale can eventually cause madness, so it looks like the disease makes the Crabfeeder crazy and dangerous. He wears a mask similar to the Sons of the Harpy mask from Game of Thrones. The idea is that Crabfeeder created his outfit from bits and pieces that he found in shipwrecks. Crabfeeder's attacks are disrupting the trade that makes Corlys Velaryon rich, so Corlys wants to attack Crabfeeder immediately. But King Viserys doesn't want a big war, so he sends diplomats to the eastern cities of Pentos and Volantis to see if they'll help against the Triarchy. And this might actually be a smart move, getting the free cities to sort this out amongst themselves so that the Targaryens don't have to go to war. But Corlys says that this makes the Targaryens look weak, and Rhaenyra suggests that they should send dragon riders as a show of force. Everyone's talking back to King Viserys and questioning him, but when Rhaenyra speaks up, Viserys and Otto shut her down and send her away. Rhaenyra feels frustrated that even though she's the heir to the throne, she's not allowed to participate in politics. She's still just the cupbearer. and Viserys still treats her like a little girl. Ryam Redwine, the commander of the Kingsguard, has died of natural causes, and there are always 7 Kingsguard, so now they need a new member to replace Ryam. Otto chooses candidates from houses Karen, Mallister, Corbray, Rowan, Craycall, and Tarly. House Tarly is the family of Sam and Randall in Game of Thrones. Each candidate is represented by a carved model, kind of like the small council balls and Viserys' dragon statue, suggesting that everyone here is just a piece in a game of Thrones. Otto tells Rhaenyra to say polite courtesies to the knights, so she plays that role with a fake, fleeting smile. This is what's expected of a young lady, smiles and courtesies, but Rhaenyra has more to offer. Otto says they should choose the Mallister or Craycall Knight for the Kingsguard, because those houses are important politically. But the Kingsguard are meant to be apolitical and unbiased, simply the best, most honourable knights in the realm. When the Kingsguard are chosen for political reasons instead, that can make the Kingsguard weaker. By the time of Game of Thrones, most of the Kingsguard aren't great knights. Instead, they're corrupt cronies, cowards, and oathbreakers. Rhaenyra wants her father's guards to actually be great fighters, so she chooses Criston Cole, because he has real battle experience, and because he's really hot. King Viserys and Alicent Hightower have a hangout date meeting, and Viserys talks about Valyria, the old Dragon Lord Empire. The Valyrian capital city was built on volcanoes called the 14 Flames, and Viserys says the volcanoes were the source of Valyrian magic and power. The books say that all Valyrian sorcery was rooted in blood or fire. Their sorcerers used glass candles that let them see across the world and enter people's dreams. Viserys says the Valyrian blood mages lived in the Anogrion. Anogri apparently means blood in Valyrian. The books say that Valyrian blood mages did some crazy messed up shit. They twisted the flesh of beasts and men to create monstrous chimeras. In the flesh pits of Gorgossos, beasts were mated to slave women to bring forth twisted half-human children. Some fans theorize that Valyrian blood magic created dragons, and gave the Targaryens the dragon blood that allows them to control dragons. In this episode, we see a painting on a wall of a dragon having sex with humans. The blood of the dragon may be literal, but Viserys doesn't mention Valyria's blood magic monstrosities, or the fact that Valyria's volcanoes were full of slaves being worked to death in the burning mines. It's crazy how Viserys admires the glory of Valyria when Valyria was so evil. It's like he's playing with a Lego model of magic Nazi Germany. Viserys and Alicent compare Valyria and its fall to Westeros, and then Viserys drops a statue of a dragon, which heavily foreshadows disaster for the Targaryen dynasty. Viserys and Alicent have been having these meeting-hang dates for a while. On one level, it's an innocent friendship. Alicent understands Viserys' grief for his dead wife Aemma, because her own mother died, so she feels real sympathy for Viserys. But at the same time, Alicent visits Viserys because Otto tells her to. He wants her to hook up with the king to make the Hightowers more powerful. Alicent's actor said it's ambiguous to what extent Alicent is scheming for Otto instead of being genuine. But ultimately, Alicent is a 14-year-old girl who has to obey her father and her king. We can see how anxious that makes her feel when she picks at her fingernails. The relationship is further complicated by Alicent's friendship with Rhaenyra, because Viserys tells Alicent not to tell Rhaenyra about their meetings, which forces Alicent to choose between loyalty to her king and loyalty to her best friend. Alicent and Rhaenyra go to a sept, which is a church of the Faith of the Seven. Alicent is a believer of the faith, which makes sense because her family, the Hightowers of Oldtown, have close ties with the faith. But Rhaenyra is not so religious. Some Targaryens don't worship gods, preferring to think of themselves as gods. So Alicent teaches Rhaenyra to pray at the statue of the Mother, to feel close to their own dead mothers. Alicent and Rhaenyra clearly have a deep bond, but when they talk about Viserys remarrying, Alicent doesn't tell Rhaenyra about her meetings with Viserys. So Alicent is not being completely honest with her friend. Viserys speaks with Lord Corlys and his wife Rhaenys, who say that the Targaryen throne looks vulnerable. Crabfeeder has the Stepstones, Daemon has Dragonstone, Queen Aemma is dead, and the heir to the throne is a girl. Corlys uses a sailing metaphor about facing a storm, because Corlys is a famous sailor who has travelled the world. Corlys proposes that King Viserys marry his daughter Laena to make the royal family stronger by deepening the Targaryen-Velaryon alliance. This alliance has been shaky ever since Rhaenys was rejected at the Harrenhal Council. Marrying Laena to the king would bring them closer and would make Corlys even more powerful. But Viserys is not keen to marry a 12-year-old girl, and he's still grieving his dead wife Aemma, so Viserys appears indecisive and uncertain, which is really not how a king should behave. Viserys and Rhaenyra try to talk and connect, but it's awkward. The silence is highlighted by the sound of crickets, and by the physical distance between Viserys and Rhaenyra at table. Rhaenyra brings up the council earlier. She wants Viserys to listen to what she has to say, but Viserys just talks over Rhaenyra again. We see that Viserys' finger is rotting after it was cut on the Iron Throne last episode. This is another bad omen, hinting that power is killing Viserys, that the throne is rejecting him. The rotting hand also suggests that the hand of the king, Otto, is corrupt. Seeing maggots eat his flesh evokes Viserys' line last episode about crows feasting on his family's corpses. This political world is eating Viserys alive, and two of the hungriest vultures are Otto and Melos. Viserys says that Corlys proposed marriage to Laena, and this worries Otto, because he wants Viserys to marry his daughter, Alicent. Otto shares some knowing looks with Grand Maester Melos. It's obvious that these two are working together. We saw them conniving in the shadows last episode, and saw a maester whispering in Otto's ear. It makes sense that Otto might be working with the maesters, because the maesters are based in the Hightower city of Oldtown. Otto even wears a chain on his neck that's similar to a maester's chain. So together, Otto and Melos subtly manipulate Viserys, saying yes, there are good reasons to marry Laena Velaryon, but that would also anger Rhaenyra, and it would be an insult to the memory of Viserys' dead wife. So without saying it directly or seeming biased, Otto and Melos pressure Viserys not to marry Laena. Viserys and Laena have an awkward walk of courtship in the garden, like Sansa's awkward walks with Loras in Game of Thrones. Laena and Viserys are both very uncomfortable with this marriage proposal, though big age gaps in political marriages are not uncommon in Westeros. Like, in the books, Sansa is 12 when she marries Tyrion, and Daenerys is 13 when she marries Drogo. Girls are considered ready to have sex when they have their first period. Here, Laena says she's expected to have sex with Viserys when she turns 14. The books emphasize the horror that Sansa and Daenerys experience as child brides, and show the danger of young pregnancies. In this world, girls' bodies are political objects, used to perpetuate bloodlines, just as men's bodies are on battlefields. Laena is not interested in marriage, she's interested in dragons. She asks about Vhagar, the oldest and biggest dragon in the world, ever since the death of Viserys' dragon Balerion, the Black Dread. Vhagar was the dragon of Queen Visenya Targaryen, who conquered Westeros alongside Aegon. Then Vhagar was ridden by Balon Targaryen, the father of Viserys and Daemon. These days, the old she-dragon has left King's Landing and retired to some place on the east coast, as many older women do. And it's kind of terrifying that the Targaryens don't know where their most dangerous weapon is. It's yet another thing that King Viserys is not in control of. Laena says the workers at Spicetown sometimes hear Vhagar's song. Spicetown is a trading port on Driftmark, so maybe the Velaryons could find Vhagar. Rhaenyra sees her father on a date with a 12-year-old. If Viserys remarries and has a son, that son could replace Rhaenyra as heir to the throne, just like Rhaenys was replaced at the Harrenhal Council when Viserys was made heir instead of her. Rhaenys says that this is the order of things. Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman on the throne. In Game of Thrones, we see how hard it is for Daenerys and Cersei to hold power, though to be fair, it is Daenerys and Cersei who torch the realm, not the men. Rhaenys has mixed feelings for Rhaenyra. She feels sympathy that Rhaenyra is facing the same obstacles she faced, but she also feels a little jealousy or spite, as though she doesn't want Rhaenyra to succeed where Rhaenys failed. But Rhaenyra insists that she will become queen and will make a new order, a more fair political system, like when Daenerys says that she'll break the wheel. Will Rhaenyra succeed where Daenerys fails? We learn that Viserys' brother, Prince Daemon, has been living on Dragonstone for the last 6 months, despite the fact that Viserys ordered Daemon to go to the Vale to his estranged wife, Rhea Royce. Daemon took his gold cloaks to Dragonstone, even though the gold cloaks are meant to be guarding King's Landing. And now Daemon does something even more provocative. He calls himself the rightful heir to the throne instead of Rhaenyra, and he says he's gonna marry his lover Mysaria, even though Daemon's already married to Rhea Royce. The Targaryens and Valyrians do have a history of marrying multiple wives. Aegon the Conqueror married both his sisters, Rhaenys and Visenya. But according to the Faith of the Seven, polygamy is a sin. King Maegor went to war with the Faith when he married 6 wives, and after that disaster, the Targaryens stopped their polygamous marriages. If Daemon brings back that tradition, he could reignite this old conflict with the Faith. And Daemon also steals a dragon egg. Because traditionally, the Targaryens put a dragon egg in the cradle of their babies, so that the dragon hatchling bonds with the baby. And Daemon says that Mysaria is pregnant with his child. But the specific dragon egg that Daemon stole is the egg that was going to be Prince Balon's, Viserys and Aemma's baby, that was going to be Viserys' heir. Daemon's heir for a day speech was what started this fight with Viserys in the first place. So, in one day, Daemon commits treason, blasphemy, egg theft, and insults Viserys over his dead baby again, forcing the king to take action. He says he'll go and face Daemon himself, but then Otto says he can't allow that, it's too dangerous. Viserys is the king, but it often seems like Otto is the one in charge. Later, Viserys says, "I am your king," and in Game of Thrones we're told that any man who must say, "I am the king," is no true king. Otto goes to Dragonstone and tells Daemon to surrender, but Daemon just asks, "Where's Viserys?" The whole reason Daemon does all this is cause he wants attention and acknowledgement from his brother. Daemon faces Criston Cole, the knight who defeated him at the tournament last episode. Daemon calls Criston Sir Crispin instead, just like in Game of Thrones when Jaime calls Dickon Rickon. Daemon is protected by his fierce and freaky dragon Caraxes, so Otto can't defeat Daemon without a lot of dudes being barbecued. But then Rhaenyra turns up on her dragon Syrax. With her dragon, Rhaenyra can't be bossed around by Otto anymore, so she takes charge and confronts Daemon. By calling himself heir to the throne, Daemon undermines Rhaenyra's position as heir. Dragonstone itself is traditionally the seat of the heir to the throne, so Rhaenyra dares Daemon to kill her, to take her place as heir. And it looks like Daemon thinks about it, but for all his violence and chaos, Daemon doesn't want to kill his family, so Daemon gives up the dragon egg. The egg is kept in this hot container because dragon eggs seem to like heat. Daemon's lover Mysaria is angry, because despite Daemon's announcements, Mysaria wasn't told that they were gonna be married, and Mysaria isn't pregnant. She says she can't get pregnant. Mysaria says that Daemon's political games might be fun for him, but they could easily get her killed. Men like Otto see Mysaria as a disposable whore. We saw in Game of Thrones how Cersei and Tywin treat women they see as whores. Mysaria says she's been sold as property and lived in terror most of her life. It's a similar backstory to Melisandre's in Game of Thrones, who was also a slave from the east who learned how to survive. We saw Melisandre with Stannis brooding on Dragonstone, much like Mysaria and Daemon on Dragonstone. Both Stannis and Daemon want the throne and want the love of their older brother. Viserys goes to Lionel Strong and asks for unbiased advice. Viserys knows that Corlys and Otto are trying to use him for their political gain, so he asks Lionel for an outside opinion on who Viserys should marry. Lionel says he should marry Laena, because Corlys is an important ally and they'll need his ships if there's war in the Stepstones. But Lionel also says that proud men don't like having to look up, and he says that while Lionel is looking up at Viserys. Lionel is the Lord of Harrenhal, the biggest castle in the realm, and he's the leader of House Strong, an ancient line of noble warriors. Surely Lionel is a proud man too, so what are his ambitions? Viserys gets angry that Rhaenyra flew off to Dragonstone without his permission. Viserys feels very protective of Rhaenyra. Maybe because his wife died, he's terrified of losing his daughter too. But Rhaenyra points out that she got results. She got the dragon egg without any violence, so she wants to show Viserys that he can trust in her abilities. Viserys acknowledges that he does need to let Rhaenyra grow into an adult. Rhaenyra says that she understands that as king, Viserys needs to remarry. So for the first time in months, Viserys and Rhaenyra really connect emotionally. But there is a misunderstanding here, because Rhaenyra thinks Viserys is talking about marrying Laena Velaryon, but really Viserys is thinking of marrying Alicent, Rhaenyra's best friend. Alicent fixes Viserys' broken dragon statue, so maybe Viserys thinks that Alicent can fix his broken family, or he just wants a wife who supports his dorky hobbies, or maybe he'd just rather marry a 14-year-old rather than a 12-year-old. Either way, the next day, Viserys announces that he'll marry Alicent Hightower, and this pisses off everybody, except Otto. Corlys is furious because by rejecting Laena, the Targaryens have rejected his family again. Rhaenyra is upset because it's super weird that her dad is marrying her friend, and also because Viserys and Alicent kept their relationship secret from her. Alicent looks anxious about marrying this old guy and becoming the queen, and Daemon will be angry because a child of Viserys could push him further back in the line of succession. Viserys' failure to communicate with Rhaenyra and to appease Corlys creates huge divisions at a time when the Targaryens are already looking vulnerable. Daemon and Corlys get together on Driftmark, the Velaryon island. Corlys' home is decorated with maps and skulls and a barnacled bust, artifacts from Corlys' sea voyages. Corlys and Daemon are both angry at Viserys, so they decide to go do their own thing, and to attack the Crabfeeder, to end the threat to Corlys' ships, and to win glory for them both. Corlys says House Velaryon have always been underdogs. Even back in Valyria, the Targaryens had dragons, but the Velaryons didn't, so they had to make their own power with ships and grit. Corlys is a self-made man, in that it was his voyages around the world that made his family rich. Corlys mentions building his seat by his own strength, because Corlys used his wealth to build a new castle on Driftmark called High Tide. He also mentions the Driftwood Throne, which is the seat of the Lord of Driftmark. According to legend, the ancient Driftwood Throne was given to the Velaryons by the Merling King. Corlys says he and Daemon must prove their worth because they are second sons. The laws of inheritance in Westeros mean that firstborn sons, like Viserys, inherit the lordships and lands. Second sons, like Daemon and Otto, often inherit nothing, so they've got to find their own place in the world. Some second sons join the Maesters, or the Faith, or the Night's Watch. Some become tournament knights, or mercenaries. There's a whole mercenary group called the Second Sons, who joined Daenerys in Game of Thrones. In the books, Oberyn Martell, and later Tyrion, join the Second Sons. Some Second Sons are jealous and resentful of their big brothers, like Stannis with his brother Robert. Daemon is a classic example of a second son who feels overshadowed by his brother. Corlys is not literally a second son, as far as we know, but House Velaryon has always been the second family in Westeros. They've always been less powerful than the royal Targaryens. So Corlys and Daemon decide to prove themselves by going to war with the Crabfeeder. So, in this episode, divisions deepen between the most powerful people in the realm, setting the stage for fiery conflicts in the future. House of the Dragon is based on the book Fire and Blood. Season 1 covers Chapter 12, Heirs of the Dragon. There's also a shorter summary of the story in the book The World of Ice and Fire, starting in the Viserys chapter. So, if you want to know the full story of House of the Dragon, from beginning to end with all the spoilers, you can get either of these on audiobook for free right now at audible.com/ASX. Sign up for a Premium Plus trial membership, and you get an audiobook to keep, even if you cancel the trial. You can get any Game of Thrones book, or Lord of the Rings, or Dune. Membership also includes unlimited access to thousands of audiobooks and shows in the Audible Plus catalog. Sign up at audible.com/ASX or text ASX to 500 500. Thanks for watching. We're doing a House of the Dragon livestream every Sunday at about 10:15 PM Eastern Time, and doing an explained video like this one each week. So like and subscribe, press the bell, follow the Twitter, and thanks to the supporters on Patreon, including Marina Julius, Biggie Smalls, The Bog Queen, Chris, Brody Franks, Babe, Carly Childress, and Coffee RZ. Cheers.